presented by CEO Effectiveness. Exploring personal mastery, mental models, and exponential performance with Dr. William D. Anton.
Hello, I'm Bill Anton, founder of CEOEffectiveness.com. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of our research-based findings on personal mastery, mental models, and exponential performance. Our vision is to help you discover your unrealized potential and to begin to understand the power of transformational learning, where you will be empowered to become the best version of yourself. Our goals today are as follows. First, to learn the relationship between self-knowledge and business negotiation success. Second, to understand how our unconscious mental models influence our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Third, to learn how habits and selective attention actually maintain our limited views of our own potential. Fourth, to know the difference between self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and self-knowledge. Fifth, to discover how self-knowledge and character actually interact to create virtue. And lastly, to learn how self-knowledge unlocks inner greatness and exponential achievement. So, what do we really know about ourselves? Preparation for optimal negotiation outcomes involves both our thoughts and our emotions. Optimal performance occurs when thoughts and emotions offer clarity of focus. In negotiation, for example, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and self-knowledge all have a major influence on negotiated outcomes. But each of these is qualitatively different. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are necessary but not sufficient for exponential performance. As with all exponential performance, preparation or practice requires a higher level of engagement and commitment than is typical of most skills and most skill development. So, what creates exponential performance and aspirational outcomes in negotiations? The answer is self-knowledge, which is knowing yourself as you truly are. Only self-knowledge has an exponential effect. So what type of practice is needed to grow in self-knowledge? And is it the same or is it different from practice in acquiring or improving on any skill? The answer is actually yes and no. You see, the path to self-knowledge is already in us, but it is hidden from our conscious mind. It is concealed there by our beliefs, assumptions, habits, and expectations, many of which are tacit or unconscious. You see, we mostly know who we think we are, what we think we can do, the perceived quality of our relationships, our fears, our aspirations, and how resilient we perceive ourselves to be in the face of stress. In other words, we know what our beliefs, our mental models, and our habits, and also our relationships allow us to see. Most of us take this as a given, and we believe that our conscious beliefs align perfectly with reality. As a consequence of this, we limit access to our inner genius, our creative potential, our influence, and our adaptability. The alternative is to listen to the faint signals from our truer self. If we ignore the inkling inside us that beckons us to awake to our truer selves, access to our true self and our innate potential may be lost. Being curious about our truer self can actually be a first step towards tapping exponential potential. All of this has enormous implications for successful negotiation and affects many other important areas of life as well. Is this a picture of success? This photo communicates engagement, smiles, shared purpose, etc. Often, however, such depictions belie a different story beneath the surface. Few of us accepting a position with this firm would expect that what we see here actually depicts the reality of the work environment. We know that all extremely high levels of achievement almost always come at the expense of other areas of the personality. In this respect, our inner life is as important as our external level of success. The more we are curious about who we truly are, in contrast to who others perceive us to be, the more likely we will move from self-awareness to self-knowledge. That is, knowing ourselves as we truly are. As a general principle, the relationship that top-tier leaders have with themselves, that is their level of self-knowledge, is the upper limit on the quality of what any team that they lead can achieve. This principle also applies to effectiveness in negotiation as well. As we gain self-knowledge, we are increasingly able to be in the present moment, to read cues in real time, to create bridges that result in successful negotiation outcomes. Because self-knowledge is transformational, we automatically take it with us in everything we do, and it contributes to flow, which is optimal performance, in everything we do as well. We see what we believe. We don't describe the world we see the world we can describe. A statement in business success through self-knowledge illustrates this principle. Quote, "We contribute to what we see, and then we interpret what we observe as validation of what we believe." End quote. This powerful predisposition results from a concert of our beliefs, mental models, habits, and relationships that more often than not keep us thinking too small. As beautifully summarized by Marianne Williamson, quote, "Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world." End quote. Knowing and valuing who we truly are liberates enormous potential within us and directs the use of that power to win-win solutions and negotiations. Self-knowledge, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness. Self-knowledge depends on self-awareness and emotional intelligence, but it is qualitatively different from either. Self-awareness is really being able to describe yourself as you appear to others with some degree of accuracy. For example, I know I have a bad temper, or I know I'm anxious. Emotional intelligence puts that awareness to use by developing the ability to identify and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. In other words, it helps us take what we are aware of in ourselves and apply it intelligently in our transactions with others. If you are self-aware and emotionally intelligent, then you are aware of the impact that your behavior has on others, and as a result, you can engage with them more effectively. Even though you're engaging more intelligently, you're still using early mental models, beliefs, and habits as the template of your engagement with others. In contrast with self-knowledge, knowing yourself as you truly are is literally transformational. Self-knowledge is based on learning that actually changes early mental models and liberates exponential potential within ourselves. The real self is powerful beyond measure. Self-knowledge qualitatively transforms and expresses itself as engagement, empathy, clarity, creative energy, adaptability, and influence. It also liberates virtue and supports character habits like responsibility, integrity, forgiveness, and compassion, all of which have been shown to contribute to exponential performance in business and negotiation outcomes. Aristotle thought of virtue, or efficiency as he called it, as the midpoint between excess and deficiency. In addition to liberating virtue, self-knowledge contributes to high levels of personal mastery in many other areas of life as well. Even curiosity about what we don't know about ourselves engages the executive center of our brain and creates energy to fuel the process of greater self-discovery. The very best negotiators are likely to emanate from being grounded in a powerful connection with their truer selves. Self-knowledge strengthens our influence and fuels our ability to achieve exponential outcomes in negotiations. Virtue emerges when we engage the personal mastery triad to create win-win solutions. All things change when we do. Self-knowledge changes everything, for the better. It changes how we function on the inside and on the outside. It not only affects habits of the head, like responsibility and integrity, but habits of the heart, like forgiveness and compassion as well. A few daily activities that can lead to greater self-knowledge are meditation, prayer, self-discipline, not judging ourselves or others, decoupling the link between ambiguity and danger, which is important because the brain is hardwired to interpret ambiguity as danger. Questioning everything, disconfirming assumptions through self-talk, doing the harder thing, taking a long-term perspective, and lastly, trying to see things from another's perspective. The process of getting to know yourself as you truly are might require you to confront some of your demons in the form of negative feelings about yourself. When this occurs, it is important to remember, serenely bear the pain of being displeasing to yourself. The process builds on itself. Self-realization gains momentum as we develop character habits that give us the courage to embrace change. Our growing effectiveness is an exponent of how committed we are to knowing ourselves and embracing the responsibility for our inner genius. All things change when you do, including your effectiveness as a negotiator and negotiated outcomes themselves. Mirror neurons. The brain is an open-loop system. We are wired to transmit and receive cues from each other. Mirror neurons are specialized brain cells that mirror in our brains what we are observing in the behavior of another person that we happen to be engaged with at the time. It might be a pleasant or a resonant experience, or an unpleasant or dissonant one. Resonance is contagious, and so is dissonance. Our mirror neurons detect the emotional subtext of another person and simulate the same configuration in our own brains. Dissonance shuts down mirror neurons and evokes resistance in others. Resonance stimulates mirror neurons and evokes cooperation in others. The implications for negotiation are enormous. We transmit genuineness and inner confidence to others when we are hiding very little from ourselves. Others perceive that we are honest and transparent in our dealings and are not inclined to look for hidden agendas. This empowers others to be less defensive, more agreeable, which in turn actually sets the stage for better negotiated outcomes. Both parties experience trust and respect as a basis for win-win outcomes. Serenely bearing our own perceived imperfections. Most of us frame our worldview based on what we learn to believe about ourselves and our world when we were very young. Early mental models. Early mental models, even when limiting and untrue, actually form the basis for our familiar at-home feelings within ourselves. This is how the unconscious mental models limit personal mastery, not unlike a governor that limits the speed on a car. We will do almost anything not to change them and maintain the at-home feelings that we have become used to. For example, an adult who felt inferior as a child might lack energy, might refuse to take risk, or conversely might desperately seek recognition and other badges of accomplishment. Even for positive recognition for real accomplishments, however, such a person would still feel unworthy of praise because their accomplishments are fueled by a desire to run from what they really fear, their truer self. In this way, familiar mental models from the distant past still feel true, and they keep us from realizing our own true greatness. To further illustrate, we can actually adopt defensive behaviors, for example, compulsive accomplishment, arrogance, that lead to recognition at the expense of our true self. The result is that the good feeling associated with real accomplishment is short-lived, and almost immediately, doubts begin to creep in. Self-administered punishment completes the cycle, leaving us once again stuck and unfulfilled. Paradoxically, we are more likely to be encumbered by feelings of powerlessness and unworthiness if we reject what we perceive as our shortcomings than by being too easy on ourselves. In fact, the best way to break the cycle is to serenely bear the pain of being displeasing to ourselves. It is okay to be imperfect. We all are. Knowing and accepting all aspects of our true selves empowers us with the ability to break free of old limiting beliefs about ourselves. It liberates clarity of purpose, creative energy, and adaptability that can be used to move forward on any endeavor and accomplish what is important to us. As you might suspect, the ability to negotiate effective and satisfying solutions is greatly enhanced, and genuine pride and accomplishment can be fully experienced and enjoyed. All things change when we do. The longer view, building relationships through negotiation. A negotiation is a point in time in a potentially resonant or dissonant relationship. A longer view creates a broader perspective that engages the executive center of our brain. If we can invoke virtuous thoughts in ourselves, we can inspire hope, vision, compassion, and mindfulness, all of which contribute to resonance. One way of creating resonance in ourselves is frequent laughter, joy, playfulness, all byproducts of self-knowledge. Research shows that resonance can be created by reflecting on how others have contributed to our success, what they did to help, and how it made us feel. A resonant person stimulates the mirror neurons of those with whom they interact in a positive manner, stimulating the desire to cooperate and agree. The implications for successful negotiation are evident. Self-knowledge contributes to resonance as nothing else and offers us optimal access to our strengths, all of which affect the emotional subtext of the negotiation itself. Comment on character, the return. Character is how one treats those who cannot repay. Character habits can be thought of as those of the head, like responsibility and integrity, and those emanating from the heart, like forgiveness and compassion. In a recent work on return on character, CEOs of high character showed a 5 times greater return on investment in comparison to companies headed by low character, low virtue CEOs. As an aside, a recent MIT management review revealed that not even 1 in 5 leaders qualified as versatile enough to offer optimal direction for their organizations. So let's look underneath these findings. How does character affect engagement? Well, Gallup has studied 100 million full-time jobs, and they found that 70% of workers were disengaged or actively disengaged, and 20% of the 70% were actively disengaged. Only 30% were inspired at work and fully engaged. And you know, that 30% experienced a 240% boost in performance. I'd like to summarize what I've talked about today by looking at 5 different illustrations. In each of the illustrations, the known and unknown parts of ourselves are depicted as circles. The known parts are shown in exponential yellow, my term by the way, and the gray area outside of the inner circle represents the unknown parts of ourselves. How access to our truer self influences potential outcomes is also illustrated. The first illustration is entitled The Familiar Business Paradigm. It is based on competition between 2 people. Little is known about the self. Each looks outside their self for gaining advantage over others. The relationship is tense, motivation is instrumental, and outcomes are often frustrating. The second illustration, labeled Transformation to a Greater Self, actually depicts what happens within an individual as they grow in self-knowledge. They discover that competition and excellence are actually incompatible. Curiosity about the unexplored areas of the real self leads to transformational learning. The pursuit of excellence in place of competition actually leads to clarity of vision, personal mastery, greater influence, competitive advantage, and positive emotions. The next illustration, entitled Transformation of the Other, depicts an image that shows how knowledge of self affects our relationship with others. The person with a greater self-knowledge is resonant and willing to benefit and help the other. Negotiation outcomes are enhanced based on sharing at the level of both the head and the heart. The person that knows their true self has the advantage. He or she sees the other more objectively and connects in an open and agreeable manner. The other person senses the genuineness and as a consequence broadens their curiosity about themselves and the other. Illustration 4 is titled Commitment at the Level of Trust. This is the aspirational profile for optimal application of MOBIS creative negotiation training. Each party here knows themselves and is able to see the other with understanding and compassion. Resonance stimulates mirror neurons in each. Communication is open at the level of dialogue. Negotiated outcomes are agreeable to both, and the relationship is not only perceived but enhanced, and receptivity to future business engagement is welcomed by both parties. The last illustration is entitled Wedge Driving Overdrive. I included this all too familiar paradigm for a breath of humor. Here the hard push is by the less aware, non-emotionally intelligent person who is off-putting even to the most self-knowledgeable person, who sees few, if any, avenues for positive outcomes. Now, I recognize that this is a lot of information to absorb in a short period of time. In order to help, we have added tools and books to our website, ceoeffectiveness.com, and actually written 2 books that present helpful information that will guide you towards realizing your fuller potential by forging a path to your truer self. The first is entitled Business Success Through Self-Knowledge and is available in paperback, Kindle, and audio versions, and has a separate guide as a tool for helping you to see and recapture your inner greatness. The second is entitled Ascend, Forging a Path to Your Truer Self, and is an allegory that is developed to be entertaining as it guides you to see, understand, and reduce the unmapped territory between what you have been able to achieve and your unrealized potential. Like Business Success Through Self-Knowledge, it is available in paperback and Kindle versions, and soon to be available in audio with an accompanying study guide. Thank you for your engagement today. My hope is that the information presented will greatly enhance your effectiveness as an aspirational leader, negotiator, and most importantly, an effective and engaged person.